The sidewalk cracked beneath James Carter's boots like it knew who he was. Each step, measured and quiet, carried the weight of 1,000 miles walked through blood, sand, and sacrifice. But now, in this quiet little town tucked behind pine trees and wide-eyed porches, he only wanted peace. He had earned that much. James's son, Ethan, a wiry 12-year-old with bright eyes and a soft voice, held his father's hand as they made their way home from school. His backpack bounced with every stride, his sneakers scuffed and worn from too many pickup games at recess. "Did you ever fight hand-to-hand, Dad?" Ethan asked, tilting his head, curiosity flickering like a flame. James gave a tight smile. "More times than I wanted to. But the best fights are the ones you walk away from before they start." Ethan nodded slowly, trying to absorb that wisdom. He always listened when his dad spoke like that, like every word was carved from experience. They were nearly at the corner of Madison and Harlem when the police cruiser appeared. It glided toward them like a predator in slow motion. The engine hummed low, almost respectful. But James had heard that hum before, overseas from drones and engines waiting to pounce. The cruiser stopped. A door opened. Out stepped Officer Rick Dalton. He wore his sunglasses like a mask, shielding any hint of emotion, though his smirk curled around his lips betrayed him. The moment he saw James and Ethan, it was like he'd been handed a toy he'd been itching to break. "You two," he barked, stepping around the hood of the car, hand hovering near his holster. "Stop right there." James's body instinctively shifted, placing himself between his son and the officer. "Is there a problem, officer?" Dalton didn't respond immediately. He tilted his head, scanning them like merchandise. "Got a call about 2 individuals matching your description. Vandalism 3 blocks over." Ethan clutched his father's arm tighter. "We just came from school," he whispered. James kept his voice calm. "We haven't been near there." Dalton took a step closer. "Name?" "James Carter. This is my son, Ethan." The name didn't click in Dalton's head, not yet. All he saw was a tall, broad-shouldered black man with a limp and a boy looking up to him like he hung the stars. That alone seemed to ignite something cruel in him. "What happened to your leg?" he sneered. "Trip over your own pride?" James didn't flinch, didn't rise. He simply said, "Combat injury." Dalton snorted. "Sure it was. Or maybe you just ran from the wrong fight." Ethan looked up at his father, confused, hurt, angry. Dalton leaned down toward the boy. "Let me give you some advice, kid. Your old man's not a hero. He's just another liar limping through life." James's jaw clenched, but his eyes never moved from Dalton's face, not an inch. Silence stretched like piano wire. Ethan's grip on his father's hand tightened like a heartbeat. "I served this country so men like you could wear that badge." Dalton spit near James's boot. Then came the voice neither of them had noticed until now. "Is that how you treat veterans in this town, Officer Dalton?" All three turned. Across the street, standing at the edge of a black Lincoln with government plates, was a woman in a navy suit and heels too sharp for suburbia. Mayor Linda Graves. Dalton blinked. "Mayor? You can save it," she said, already pulling out her phone. "I'll be requesting the body cam footage immediately." Dalton's mouth opened, then shut. James gently guided Ethan away without a word. Back home, the silence in their modest house was heavier than usual. Ethan sat on the couch, backpack still on, staring at nothing. James placed a hand on his shoulder. "You okay?" Ethan didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, "Why didn't you fight back?" James sat beside him. "Because some fights are better won with witnesses." But the story didn't end there. By morning, the footage was already making rounds. Not online, not yet, but in City Hall. Mayor Graves had seen it, and she had friends in higher places than Officer Dalton ever imagined. People who recognized James Carter from old black and white photos on the Pentagon walls. Silver Star, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, a hero 10 times over. The war had taken much from James, his brothers, his youth, part of his leg, but it had also given him something rare. Receipts, proof, record. Dalton didn't know that. He didn't know that James's last mission involved dragging a fellow soldier half a mile under enemy fire after being shot twice just to get him to a helicopter. He didn't know that James's name had been mentioned in the halls of Congress during a medal ceremony, or that the soldier he saved now worked in federal oversight of law enforcement. Colonel Marcus Hale. The phone rang 2 days later. James answered. A familiar voice came through. Gravel and steel. "James, heard what happened?" "Hell, it's been a while. I've got a meeting scheduled with that town's PD oversight board in 3 days. Just thought you should know." James exhaled. "You always did have good timing. You just sit tight. I'll handle the loud ones." But Ethan didn't sit tight. He started asking questions, reading, watching old interviews about his father. He found an article from 5 years ago. The Man Who Walked Through Fire, James Carter's Last Mission. He read it 5 times. Then he printed it out and brought it to school. By Friday, the whispers started. He saved 14 soldiers? Wait, his dad really was in the Special Forces? No way Officer Dalton said that stuff to him. By Monday, every kid in school knew. One of them had an older brother on the town's news blog. They posted the body cam footage under the headline, "War Hero Humiliated in Front of Son. Cop Faces Backlash." The town exploded. And Officer Dalton? He tried to lie, said it was a misunderstanding, that the footage was taken out of context. But Colonel Hale arrived in a crisp gray suit with a briefcase full of documentation and a grin sharp enough to cut through Dalton's career. In a packed hearing, Hale addressed the board. "This man," he said, gesturing to James in the front row, "bled for this country. He didn't ask for a parade, he didn't demand recognition, but he damn well didn't deserve to be mocked in front of his son for the color of his skin or the limp he earned saving American lives." Dalton's badge was suspended before the hearing ended. But Hale wasn't done. "James, I want you in D.C. next month. Veteran Affairs is launching a national outreach initiative. You'll be the face of it. We need real heroes." James blinked. "You serious?" "I've never been more." Back home that night, Ethan sat at the kitchen table, drawing. James glanced over. "What's that?" "It's us. You and me." James looked. The drawing was rough, but beautiful. A tall figure in uniform, a small boy beside him, and behind them, a flag, not of a country, but of pride.
"You make me proud, Dad," James's voice caught. "You make me stronger, son. Outside, the night held its breath, but peace, Peace had finally come home. James Carter had never intended to be a symbol. He had spent years trying to disappear. After retiring from the military, all he wanted was to raise his son in peace and heal from the war the world forgot. But Officer Rick Dalton had forced the spotlight where none was welcome, and now that light was too bright to shut off. It was strange watching your own life become headlines. TV vans parked outside the modest brick home James had bought with his pension. Microphones thrust forward every time he walked to his mailbox. "How do you feel about Officer Dalton's suspension? Did the town apologize? Are you taking legal action?" James gave the same quiet answer each time. "I'm not interested in attention, just accountability." But behind that calm voice, a storm brewed. Not just for him. For every man who looked like him and limped like him. For every black veteran who'd been disrespected while draped in the flag he defended. For every son like Ethan who had to watch dignity trampled and pride stripped away under the boot of a badge. This wasn't just about James anymore. Rick Dalton wasn't taking his fall quietly. He showed up at a local diner a week after his suspension, chest puffed, accompanied by 2 off-duty officers who still believed in protecting their own. They laughed loud, made a scene. One even said, "Bet that war hero's gonna cry racism again." But their laughter died when Colonel Marcus Hale walked through the door. Hale was alone, and he walked straight to their booth. "You gentlemen have something you want to say to my friend James Carter?" he asked casually, though the weight in his voice made the glass in the windows shiver. Dalton smirked. "We're just having a private meal." "Oh? Then maybe keep it private. Because the last time a bunch of cowards tried to discredit a hero, they got their pension stripped and their records unsealed. You boys want that too?" No one answered. Hale didn't need them to. He left without waiting for permission, but he had planted something that would grow in silence. Fear. Meanwhile, Ethan had changed. The boy who once stayed quiet in the back row now walked taller, sharper. The article about his dad still lived in his backpack, laminated now like a sacred document. He started a club at school, Sons and Daughters of Heroes. It wasn't just about war. It was about dignity, voice, truth. Other kids joined. Children of single parents, children whose fathers wore uniforms, some military, some janitorial. Kids who knew what it felt like to be invisible. Together, they built something stronger than protest signs. They built pride. One Friday, they marched through the school halls with shirts that read, "My dad's a hero, what's yours done?" Principal Rourke called James in, worried it was too political. James just smiled. "Truth is never too political, ma'am. It's just inconvenient." Then came the mayor's call. "James, you might want to sit down." He didn't. "Dalton's suing the department." James's jaw clenched. "On what grounds?" "Unlawful termination. Claims character defamation. Says the footage was edited to make him look bad." "Of course he does. He wants his badge back." James didn't answer, but something inside him shifted. He had stayed quiet long enough.
2 weeks later, James stood at a podium inside the state capitol. Media swarmed. Veterans flanked him. Colonel Hale stood off to the side, arms crossed. Ethan was front row, eyes locked on his father. James looked out over the room. Cameras clicked, lights burned. "I didn't ask for this stage," he began. "But sometimes you're handed a microphone so others don't suffer in silence." He paused. "I was mocked in front of my son, not just as a man or a father, but as a black man who gave everything to a country that sometimes forgets who built it." The room went still. "I served in wars that didn't make headlines, buried friends who didn't come home. I walked through fire and didn't ask for applause. But I will not stay quiet while someone in a uniform dishonors every uniform worn with courage."
he stepped back. The applause thundered like artillery. By that night, over 6 million people had seen the speech online. Dalton's lawsuit crumbled. His attorney withdrew. Documents leaked showing complaints against him from 6 other civilians, all quietly buried. He lost his badge. But James didn't stop there. With support from Hale and the mayor, he helped launch a statewide initiative requiring all officers to receive veteran awareness training with a focus on racial bias and trauma response. A new division was formed in Veteran Affairs, and James was named Director of Veteran-Civilian Relations. Not bad for a man who just wanted peace. A year later, James stood in Arlington, visiting old names carved in stone. Ethan stood beside him, taller now, voice deeper, a young man in his own right. Ethan placed a small flag at the base of a grave marked Lieutenant Alan R. Jordan, died saving others. "Did you know him?" Ethan asked. James nodded. "He died so I could come home to you." Ethan looked up. "I'm glad you did." As they turned to leave, a young officer stood nearby, watching them. James nodded politely. The officer took a breath. "Mr. Carter, I just wanted to say, my academy class watched your hearing. We changed because of you. I changed." James looked at him for a long second, then extended his hand. Then it was worth it. That night, back at home, James sat on the porch. Ethan brought out 2 mugs of cocoa. "Think Dalton ever think about us?" he asked. James smirked. "Probably. And every time he does, I hope he hears the sound of 1,000 boots marching in the opposite direction." Why? Because silence is survival, but justice walks loud. And in that little quiet town where the sidewalk still cracked under boot and badge alike, peace stayed a little longer, because one man stood tall and never again let anyone kneel on his name.